Hello and thanks for checking out TheChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We're going to be looking at WEED, ACB, APH, CRON, CVSI, and TLRY in this video. Before we start off, potential short-term bullish catalyst, which could hopefully finally give these bulls a little bit of a bounce at least, is the potential that Ontario is going to be announcing that they are going to allow the private sector to participate in the MJ industry once it does become legal. This is not official yet at this point, so this is a scenario where it's a rumor right now, and it's potentially going to be announced as soon as this coming week, but not necessarily. The kind of unidentified source with this information at this point. So the market, in my opinion, has begun to price this in to a certain degree. We saw a little bit of a bullish day on Friday. Certainly nothing extremely impressive, but enough that, in my opinion, that reaction to that, there was a tweet that went out on Thursday night and the information started spreading around. I do believe that that had a little bit of an impact. So that's something to be looking forward to as a short-term impact. But as of right now, we still need to see some key resistance breaks in a lot of these names. And I'm watching WEED. You can see at this point, this bounce on the daily time frame is not impressive. And what very clearly stands out to me on this chart is the fact that we've seen 2 green days in a row one time since the all-time high. So this is over a month now without any real, and even these 2 days, not entirely impressive. So the bulls have pretty much done nothing since the all-time high. We've seen a couple solid oversold bounces with some, power on that day, but the following day had no follow-through. So at this point, we're still remaining cautious as bulls. The daily chart is very clearly in a downtrend of lower highs and lower lows, and the weekly chart is still holding on just fine for the bulls longer term. Ideally, we would have held 33.76, but the must-hold level for me is 23.88, and we're still very, very significantly above that level. We would have to lose 33% in order to break that weekly support. So again, my mindset and my game plan that I will absolutely change if I see volume or price action telling me otherwise, but my game plan is to start focusing on this sector more significantly for the bulls as we enter September. So for the next month of August, I'm going to still be cautious and going to be anticipating the potential of bounces to just be setting lower highs on the daily chart. And right now we're watching a clear 4-hour pattern, which was a great guide for me personally on a trade attempt that I made on Friday. But what I was watching and what we were watching on the 4-hour time frame is the low, the high of the bounce, which ended up being a double top, our higher low, lower high, higher low, and then we got a bull break right to start Friday. So I took a bull position right at the start of Friday as well after some initial consolidation in the first minute or two of trading, and I entered that position because we broke the 4-hour lower high. So I said, all right, I'm going to be skeptical, I'm going to be cautious because the bulls have not been impressive on this entire pullback. But I want to be in a position where if we do see follow through on this bull break, and knowing that we did just have this, potential rumor, which could add a little bit momentum to the bulls, that was a reason I wanted to be in the trade. But as soon as this double top, 34.56, 34.52, and we topped out at 34.53, as soon as I saw that, my red flag went up and I said, okay, if I see any kind of weakness here, I'm going to lock in my very small short-term profit, and then I'll just wait for this triple top of resistance to break if I'm going to get back in. So that's what I did. I took small short-term profit, not a big trade whatsoever, but it remained protective, and I'm very happy that I did that because we did triple top and we did pull back for the rest of the day. So knowing where that resistance was completely protected myself in terms of being a lot quicker to exit that position than I would have been had we not rejected from a very clear resistance level. So at this point, the 2 support levels I'm watching are 33.25. We do still have these clear 4-hour higher lows. So 33.25 and 32.50 are the most important supports, and the resistance is very clear now. When this resistance breaks, we should see a little bit of follow through because it is so clear, and you have to put yourself in the mindset of the opposing side of the trade. If I'm a bull, this break is very clearly a change of the momentum and a move for the bulls. But if I'm a bear, if I were in a bearish position, just imagining if I were, because I'm not, I would cover on this break. That would be enough of a bull move that I would want to sit out and look for a better entry as a bear. So when this level breaks, I expect some bulls to be buying and I expect some shorts to be covering, which is why I expect a little bit of follow through behind it. The daily chart, if we break this level, the next resistance is 35.30 and 35.77. And again, as far as the bulls clearly shifting momentum back in their favor, it's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion, because if we get a bull break over that 4-hour resistance, anything under $40, 40.06, I'm still going to be considering a lower high based on this pattern with our high, a lower high on the bounce, another lower high before the dump. This was when we had Kramer talking about WEED again. And then any move, even if we get the bull break, I'll still be looking for a lower high compared to 40 at this point. Keeping an eye on the MACD on the daily time frame and just needing the bulls to push it through. So pretty much heading into next week, a break of the 4-hour higher lows is bearish, a break of the triple top is bullish. This is essentially an ascending triangle pattern where you have a horizontal base of resistance, and then you have a higher low pattern heading into that as the pattern gets tighter and tighter. So that's what I'm going to be watching for this coming week on WEED. APH, we're seeing a little bit of a discrepancy in between all these individual names as they're doing their own thing to a certain degree. And APH certainly showed that at the end of the day on Friday. Look at that close. It's just a beautiful close for the bulls, very strong, and nothing like what the close was on WEED down near the low of the day. So we don't see very often when they close at opposing spectrums, really bullish compared to bearish. That's what we have here on APH. And APH's 4-hour resistance is just as clear as WEED. And we had a bear break here without much follow through. So when you see patterns that have clear bull breaks or bear breaks without follow through, that can oftentimes be taken as a viewpoint in the other direction. And it's also the scenario where the entire sector was holding on. So even though we broke bearish on APH because WEED was still in a 4-hour higher low pattern and not seeing bear breaks, I believe that helped as well. So here on the 4-hour time frame, clear lower highs, 11:37, 11:28, and now 11:12, but that's we have to wait for this level because we closed at the high. The bulls had momentum, so we're going to look to test these resistances first thing on Monday, and if they break, the next levels we're looking up at are in the low $12 range up here. So could be looking for some decent little follow through. The daily chart has clear lower highs, and the bulls are trying to break these lower highs, much more clear than on WEED on its daily chart. Just a weak bounce attempt. We're trying to break that high, but APH was a pretty decent bounce attempt, and we're trying to break those highs. So the weekly time frame for APH, longer term, yes, we did break a key level that the bulls wanted to maintain of 11.25. The break of that level was a bit of a red flag, and now that 11.25 is potentially acting as some resistance, as the high of this week was 11.28 resistance. But in terms of the longer term, the bulls can easily turn this pattern around, and the bears can easily continue to run with it. So it's a little bit less clear. The bulls, if we get a break of 13.45, they're right back into control, and it's a big time save. But if we just set a lower high on this weekly time frame, looking up at 12.22 and 13.45, and then come back down and continue to fade, obviously that's going to keep the bears in control. So in terms of, clear short-term red flags, yes, we had that break, and there was a decent dump associated with that break of support. In fact, we dumped almost 10% once it fell, but the bulls are attempting to recover. So interested to see how the start of the week is. Really, the bulls have to show up and prove themselves for both of these names. Need to break the triple top there and break the lower highs, and we'll be keeping an eye on bull MACD potential here as well on the daily chart. And my game plan, I haven't really been able to play shorts well because Fidelity has not had a whole lot available, and that tells me there's probably some high demand for shorts where people are looking to get in bearish on these bounces while we do wait. So for me personally, if the clear bear setup is there, I'll take it. But otherwise, I do have a bullish mindset, and because I have a bullish mindset in this current environment, I am going to be more cautious and patient because it is not a favorable environment for the bullish mindset at this current point. ACB is really struggling. The bounce really started to follow through for the first time in a while, but what's going on right now is a little bit tricky because we have the merger going through, and a lot of what we're seeing going on is shuffling around of these shares, whether it's settling of shares of Leaf shares becoming ACB shares. We have the potential for Leaf holders to be looking to lock in a little bit of profit. We have the potential of ETFs lightening up their ACB position. We've seen initial ETFs selling some ACB because, again, when you have an ETF position, let's say it's 5% ACB and 3% Leaf, all of a sudden you have an 8% position now in one company, and that is a bit more exposure than most of these ETFs are going to want. So we've seen some minor selling of these ETFs, certainly not significant at this point, but it does keep me cautious because if we set a lower high here on the daily time frame, we could be looking at the potential of that ETF selling pressure being a factor. So the other two positions, WEED and APH, do not have any clear bear entries, but the bears are a lot more comfortable on ACB right now. Anything under 770 is just a lower high, and bears can look to short this bounce attempt. And as long as we keep setting lower highs on the dailies, the bears have full control. So it's an oversold bounce attempt. There was some extreme selling pressure on ACB when we had that arbitrage going on between ACB and Leaf shares. And we look at the weekly chart, and we did come down here and break to the lowest price that we had seen in a very long time. And we dropped all the way back down to where we were back in December 2017. So 7-month lows. And obviously, just comparing to the other names, where would we be on APH if we were at 7-month lows? We'd be below 890. And for WEED, if we were at 7-month lows, we would be all the way back. We'd be all the way back down here at, let's see, under 20, around $20. So very clearly, comparatively, ACB is struggling a lot more, and it's going to be a while before these bulls can change this daily trend. So we've been playing this bounce. I've been playing ACB. I entered my first position at the end of the day on Thursday, and that's because we had this solid bounce, and I actually flipped this solid bounce as well. This was a scenario where Thursday morning, we had the same style of trading that I've been doing for WEED, and I talked about in the last video, where my aggressiveness buying is matching the aggressiveness of the bears first thing in the morning. So if we are already oversold on hourly, 15-minute, 4-hour, and we dump first thing in the morning, and we drop 3 to 5%, that's when I'm scaling in for an oversold bounce. So I entered multiple positions on ACB, got a real nice low average on ACBFF. That's how I trade ACB, and scaled out half of that into the bounce, and then held half overnight because I was looking for an hourly higher low and then a higher high to get some follow through. And we did get that. And I ended up entering a little bit more position on ACB and then selling some more. So I'm still at a half position and I am still holding it, but I will be quick to cut that position if we break 697 here and lose this hourly higher low, because this daily chart right now is not showing a very convincing follow through. All this volume here on this chart came at the after the bell rang. Something like 18 million, maybe even more than that, 22 million or something shares came through after the bell rang. And what that shows us is shares settling from earlier in the day. So again, this can be as simple as two brokers calling each other on the phone and doing an OTC order for a massive amount of shares, 5 million shares, where if you're trying to fill those orders in the regular market, you're not going to be able to do it. There's not enough liquidity to do so. But if you have two big institutions and say, hey, I got 5 million shares and we can agree on this price, and that's when it shows up after the bell rings. That's it being accounted for on the books. Not saying that's this instance what happened. It could be something else. It's just speculation because we have this merger going through. There's a number of things that these shares at the end of the day could be, but that is just something to keep in mind, that when it happens right after the bell rings, it's shares being settled from earlier in the day. So again, at this point, it's a weak bounce attempt. Have to change the lower highs on the daily. I don't anticipate that happening on this bounce. We're still 10% below 770, the last lower high. So I anticipate the best case for the bulls will likely be another lower high, however high we get before we top out, and then a pullback, and the bulls will have to form a higher low compared to 653 and then break those lower highs. So we're still a ways away from changing this daily trend, in my opinion. Cron on the daily chart has also been fading, lower high and lower low, the weekly time frame pulling back, but not really a clear bear break just yet. We did see a bear break of 815. The bulls ideally wanted to hold that level, but no major red flag. Again, this is a scenario like APH where the bulls could pretty easily take back control of this move if we can break resistance of 945. The red flags will start to fly for the bulls if we break 706, and then we're looking down at 657. So the daily chart on Cron, same thing. In order to change this lower high pattern, really the last clear bounce and lower high that we had was up at 920. So it's the same scenario that on any bounce, we will still look for just a lower high compared to that level, and we're a ways away from changing this trend on the daily time frame. So right now, this bounce doesn't really have any follow through on Cron. We have 4-hour lower highs and lower lows still. Resistance, I'm looking at 838, and support is down at 795. But a pretty weak bounce attempt at this point without much follow through. If we're just looking short term, APH is the strongest with that close on Friday. WEED is, comparatively, ACB stronger on the hourly with its bounce, but certainly not on the daily due to the all-out dump. So everybody's in a different situation, essentially. And trading game plan, if you're thinking short-term trading, needs to reflect where each individual name stands. So I'd be much more cautious on ACB. WEED, it's all about the triple top. APH is about breaking the lower highs. So it all depends on what your style of trading is, what your position is, and what your time frame is on the trade. That's all very important. CVSI, nice follow through for the bulls. This is one where we had a breakout to all-time highs and healthy consolidation. You look at the consolidation on the weekly time frame and you know we're just looking to form a higher low because we saw a huge move a month in a row with no support established. So when we do consolidate, we look for the higher low. And how can we be sure that the weekly higher low has formed? When the daily trend changes. So here's our top, lower high, higher low, equilibrium with a bear break, another lower high on this bounce attempt, and then the bulls finally change the trend with a higher low and then a higher high. So as soon as the bulls break 188, this most recent lower high, and we break that level, that's when we're confident and we say, all right, our weekly higher low has been set at 139, and that's a potential entry for the bulls at 188. You make a bull entry, we consolidate on very low bear volume, form another higher low, keeping with the uptrend, and you can say to yourself, all right, I'm in on the 188 break, and I will exit if we lose the daily higher low pattern. So we established a new higher low at 172, and potentially moving a stop loss up to that level. We see a clear bull break, and you can see the big time bull volume behind it. Huge volume spikes, and a breakout to all-time. Actually, I don't believe it's all-time highs, but a breakout to the highest prices we've seen in years and to higher highs. So a lot of follow through behind that, a lot of big bull volume. We pulled back significantly, and here's our new higher low on the daily, 233. So if you're playing the higher low pattern, you're still in this trade, 233 would now be your stop level, and we're looking up at 297 resistance. There's a ton of volatility here on this name. You know, the hourly time frame in one candlestick, 233 up to 265, 15% bounce. So very significant. Definitely high risk, high reward on this play, but the weekly chart is just beautiful for the bulls with continuation on big bull volume, and the daily chart is as well, as long as this higher low pattern is maintained, which it currently is. TLRY, recent IPO, and this is one where we were looking for an equilibrium on this bounce, and a lot of us made a really nice entry on the bull move that we saw on Wednesday, another one with significant percent gains from the low of 24.20 up to the close. There was essentially a 10% bounce. From the low to the high, it was even more significant. So a lot of us locked in profit, and we had to stay protective because this bounce, again, this is the candlestick that is not confirming follow through. Bullish reversal candlestick, no confirmation. Upper wick of profit taking and close near the low of the day. And we compare this to ACB, and this is why I'm cautious of ACB, because this is not a convincing follow through confirmation candlestick at this point. And it led to just a lower high being set now, 27.74, new resistance on TLRY, and we're right back down at our low of consolidation of 24.20. And we broke that by 8 cents, but that's still a base that I'm keeping an eye on. Volume is still very low, so we're looking for an equilibrium of volume to form, so to speak, and we'll look for a spike in volume sometime early this coming week to break this declining volume pattern and give us direction. We're either going to see a bear break of $24 and a spike in volume leading down back towards the all-time low, or we're going to see a bull volume spike and head back up to 27.74. So because there's so much volatility here, I do like it. As a trader, it's definitely a lot more tricky due to the lack of price history. So you definitely want to have some experience trading recent IPOs to be looking at this name. And I'm just going to keep it on monitor. I'm just going to keep watching it. I don't see any clear setups that I like right now, but I'm going to keep an eye on it because when we do get clear setups, those breaks usually see some significant follow through. So that's where we stand as we head into this coming week. I hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. I appreciate you watching. I am going to continue to look to play some bull breaks with short-term mindset until the daily trend clearly changes, and then we'll be looking for that daily trend to change and continue to hold for those bulls sometime in September. Could be the second half of September, could be the end of September, in towards October as we look for people to potentially buy in heading into that legalization. So I appreciate you watching. See you soon.